Okay, so let's make a start. Welcome everybody to tonight's training webinar. As you can see there, tonight's subject, hopefully you can all see okay, is, I've actually changed the name of this one. I forgot to change the front slide, but you'll see it in a minute. This one is actually called, I'll show you here, Grow Yourself to Grow Your Business. I think I always found build your business was a bit too kind of vague and didn't tell you what it meant. So yeah, welcome everybody to this webinar. This is one of a series of 8 which I run pretty much every Wednesday night. Every now and again I miss one if there's an opportunity meeting or something that I'm going to. And all of these webinars are recorded. So I'll show you, for those of you who haven't been on this before, I'll show you how to get to the recordings of this one or any of the other ones if you want to do. There's 8 in a series. I go round, normally takes me, as I said, 8 weeks or so, and then I go back to the beginning again. But I've always got the last 8 available to watch and go over. So, for example, Alison, I know, has just joined this week. So, Alison, you might want to have a look at the first couple there over the next few days, just to help you get started and so on. But tonight we're going to talk about those kind of skills that it's almost difficult to put a name to. The first few are all to do with putting your catalogues out and getting customers, getting your customer base. And the next couple, 4 and 5, are about growing your team. So that's team building and supporting those new team members. And then the last 3 are, I suppose, what you might call growing yourself. That's why I've done this. What are the skills that you need on top of that, on top of those skills, to grow a successful business? So, what's next, I hear you ask. Well, I can't hear you ask, but you know what I mean. As I said a bit earlier, you know how to put your catalogues out and build a customer base. You know how to find and sponsor somebody into your team, and you know how to support them once they're in the team. But what other skills do you need to grow a successful business? So that's what we're going to cover tonight. So first off, we're going to talk about following a system. You don't have to reinvent the wheel with Kleeneze. We've been doing what we're doing now pretty much for the last 20 years or so. I'm sure John Hawkes can tell us a few of the big differences that have happened in his time here. But for most of us, the system now is pretty much the same as it was when we first started. There's some essential things that's really useful to understand about the business and how it all works. So I'll explain a little bit more about that. And I'm going to start introducing you to personal development. This is a big thing, I think, in Kleeneze that a lot of people don't spend enough time on. And it can make the difference between a kind of a small business where you're struggling along to a hugely successful business. And there's a bit of recommended reading on top of that as well. So, what do we mean when we say don't reinvent the wheel? Well, at school we were all taught you have to kind of create things for yourself. You have to be innovative, you have to show your initiative, and copying is not allowed. If you were caught copying, it was detention or even worse, a visit to the headmasters. But in Kleeneze, copying somebody who is successful is the route to success. So, what should you copy? No good just saying copy somebody. And the system that we talk about, you might hear about in various trainings and things, that you should copy is basically what you've been learning on these webinars. It's how often do you put your catalogues out? How long do you leave them with your customers? What information do you send to prospects if they're interested in joining? Those sorts of things. So, because Kleeneze has been in its current form for at least 20 years, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. But that doesn't mean you're not allowed to come up with new ideas. But the gist of it is, find someone who is successful and copy them. So who would you know who is successful at your business? Well, probably your upline, but maybe your upline's quite new themselves, in which case maybe their upline or that person's upline. I've learned from personal experience that my upline is fantastically supportive, but she's got John Hawkes is her. So my upline, sorry, is Georgie Marshall and her son, her mum Sue Marshall, who is the person I go to for most of my support. But then John Hawkes, Bob Webb are all fantastically supportive as well. And these guys are all so successful. If I copy them, I can't fail, but to be successful as well. So that's what you need to do. You need to find in your upline those successful people that you can copy. So, if you found somebody and you want to copy what they're doing, and you kind of learnt the catalogue side and the team building side, what are the other things that are really helpful in your understanding in growing a big business? Well, I find it's really, really useful just to understand the concept of network marketing. The whole idea of you don't have to recruit every single person in your downline yourself, and you have to duplicate what you do or what your successful upline is doing, and then show your new team members how to duplicate what you do. So there's a couple of really great getting started one's a book and one's a CD, all about understanding network marketing. So the first one there is called The 45-Second Presentation by Don Failer. It's quite a small book, probably 100 pages, big writing, lots of pictures. Literally, you can read it in one session. It's a really good read. And one of my favourite CDs, I got the CD just after I'd started, and I still listen to it regularly now. Building Your Network Marketing Business by Jim Rohn. Jim's passed away sadly a few years ago, but his books and his CDs are very, very useful. So I'd certainly recommend anything by Jim Rohn, and that one in particular. So what else do you need to understand? Apart from the industry that we're in, which is network marketing, you need to understand a bit about the Kleeneze pay plan, how Kleeneze pay you. And it's quite a big pay plan, from all the way up through the 21% commission when you first start off, through the different volume bonuses, up to gold, senior, bronze executive, and premier, platinum, SEDs, all those other things beyond. You don't need to know the nitty-gritty detail of every single step in the plan. What I would suggest is you at least understand a couple of steps ahead of you, so you've got a goal or a target to aim for. And another thing that is really, really useful, and I've pointed out here about the Jim Rohn CD, it's really important to understand that the Kleeneze business really is a numbers game. And what I mean by that is, if you're thinking about the retail, the more catalogues you put out, the more customers you will make, and the more orders you'll receive, and the more income you get. Equally, on the team building side, the more leads you generate, the more people you speak to, the more people you get to look at the information, the more team members you will get, and the more income you will get from that side. So understanding that it's not the case of every single house you put a catalogue through should order from you, and every single person that you lead to should be desperate to join your Kleeneze team, because that's not going to happen. But the more catalogues you put out, the more people you speak to, the more successful you will become. And getting that kind of understanding will just help you through some of the times when you're not getting so many orders or you're not getting so many people join your team. So, I heard this at a seminar I went to once, and it really, really made a big kind of change in my mind thinking a little bit. And the quote was, "If you only do what you know you should do, you can achieve anything." And that is so true. Once you've been in the business for, I don't know, maybe a month, 2 months, you probably know pretty much everything you need to know to run a Kleeneze business. You know how to put catalogues out, you know how to send information to people. So why aren't we all hugely successful? Because we know how to do it. And the reason is that we don't all do what we should do. So how can we address some of the reasons why we don't do that? Well, Jim Rohn's got a good phrase for that. He says, work harder on yourself than you do on your job. Now, we're not in a job in Kleeneze, we're all kind of self-employed, but if you spend all of your days and all of your nights doing catalogues and team building, you're probably not going to improve. If you're doing something wrong and you don't realise you're doing something wrong, you might not realise that. So you need to do some work on yourself. You need to do a bit of self-training, if you like, self-education, or personal development, as we've said there. So become a sponge for information. There's so many opportunities. I mean, all you guys here, in a way, I'm speaking to the converted, because you're all on this webinar anyway. But become a sponge for all the other bits of information that you can find. Make sure you're reading and listening and attending meetings to see where you can improve. And I've called it there, plug into personal development, because this is the most valuable skill set that you can develop in your time at Kleeneze. So you can be reading, you can be watching things, there's videos, all sorts of things available on YouTube. you should be listening to CDs if that's your preferred way of listening to things or taking information in. And there's all these webinars. There's the 8 webinars in this series. There's lots of others. The team webinars that Andy Boswell runs. I know he had a couple of technical issues recently, but hopefully he'll get that sorted out. And I think all of the old ones that he's had are all recorded as well. And get to your local meetings. And I think this is an absolute gem here. I've been going to pretty much every meeting I can manage in my 5.5 years. And pretty much every time I go there, I find another golden nugget. And all that is just something that somebody says, and maybe you've heard it 3 times before from your sponsor, but they just say it in a slightly different way, and it just kind of clicks, and it makes you sort of think, oh yeah, I can do this slightly differently, or you know what, I'd never realised the importance of that bit, and so you focus a bit more on that. And just 1 or 2 tiny little things from these meetings. Every time you go back from a meeting, you change something that you've been doing, and you move a bit, you get a bit better. And then you change something else, and you get a bit better, and so on. So, I'm not going to go through all of these in detail. As I said, this is all recorded, so you could go to the recording, come back, and sort of pause it on this point if you wanted to go through this in detail. This is a list of essential books or listening, and they're all kind of really, really useful ones. The ones I've highlighted there, I'm going to just go through briefly on the next few pages, but come back to this if you're looking for more reading and more useful stuff as well. The reason I've highlighted the ones in blue are my personal favourites, but as I say, oh yeah, Helen, thank you very much for that. That's not on there, not because I don't like it, but it's because this slide was done before I read it. Okay, recommended books, certainly CDs. This particular one is a CD. I talked about this earlier. This is the Building Your Network Marketing Business. I'd certainly recommend it for everybody, including all new starters. It just gives you philosophies. Now, philosophy is a strange word. If people started talking to me about what's my philosophy, I kind of my kind of eyes glaze over. I haven't got a clue what they're talking about. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in the next webinar, but it's just basically kind of your attitude, your way of thinking, and the specific ways of thinking when you're doing network marketing. And that, as I say, that was the first one I listened to, I think, and it's probably still my favourite now. A good follow-up to that, again by Jim Rohn, is 7 Strategies for Wealth and Happiness. And this is just about great ways to set goals. Goal setting is a fantastic way just to make sure you're continually progressing and improving and building your business. Talks a bit about investment, both of your time and your money, and a bit about life philosophies as well. So I really like that book as well, another favourite of mine from Jim Rohn. Okay, the next 2, they're very similar books. They kind of have the same, what's the word I'm looking for, principle behind them. If you've been in Kleeneze for more than 2 or 3 years, you may well have seen a couple of these. Darren Hardy spoke at one of our conferences a few years ago, and Jeff Olson was the guest speaker at the New York International Conference. And both of these books are basically about the fact that it's not the huge decisions that determine whether you'll be successful or not. It's the little ones that you make every day. And there's a little picture there that just shows it. If you can imagine, today is just right at the beginning here where the lines are very close together. And let's suppose you've got a goal to lose some weight or something. So every day you've got a choice, a decision to make. And that decision could be, I'm going to eat an apple, or I'm going to eat a Mars bar, chocolate bar. And if you do it for one day, if you eat that apple, you don't suddenly lose a load of weight overnight. But every day, if you have that same decision to make, and you eat an apple, and then the next day you eat an apple, and the following day, then gradually what you'll find is you get healthier, your weight comes down, or your health goes up, depending on how you're measuring it. And it kind of gradually accelerates and accelerates and accelerates. Equally, if you just say, oh, crikey, I can't be bothered, I'm just going to have a Mars bar, it won't notice any difference, then you're absolutely right. The next day, you won't be any heavier. The day after that, you won't. It could be a month later before you start feeling any different at all. But over a period of time, all of those decisions, those lack of disciplines, result in weight loss or lack of health or whatever. And it's the same in all different parts of life. And that's what these two books are about, really. The fact that, you know, if you can develop some really useful daily habits that help your business, and that could be, you know, putting a few extra catalogues out, putting some shop cards out, whatever part of the business you're working on, doing that persistently, consistently over, you know, every day over a period of time will result in massive success. So two great books there. Either of those I think are definitely worth a read. Okay, another book here. This is another one that I liked. I've had a lot of people sort of say, oh, they find it quite hard to read, but actually I found it really useful. It's written by a chap called Dale Carnegie, who was basically, he wrote it back in the 1930s, around about the time when he was kind of working with lots of managers of, you know, big steel industry companies and that kind of thing. You can imagine the American boom time, I suppose. Basically, the gist of this book is, be nice to people. It's amazing what you get in return. And it's just it just sets your philosophies for life, you know. So going out with a smile on your face, always being cheerful, you know, not criticizing people. There's a little phrase he says, forgive me if I don't get it exactly right. Any fool can criticize and condemn, but it takes character and character and understanding to understand and appreciate, or something. That's not quite right, but anyway. Hopefully that what it's trying to get across is the fact that if you try to understand people's situations, then people will understand you, and once you've kind of got that rapport going, you can then start to talk about business, and that's kind of really useful when you're starting to think about recruiting people into your business as well. So that's certainly a good one to get. Right, this is another one. I really like this one. Darren Hardy. It's called Design Your Best Year Ever, and it's actually a kind of workbook. And the way it works is you decide at the end of a year, sorry, at the beginning of a year, and it doesn't have to be a calendar year. You could start, you know, your year could start on the 20th of March for the next 12 months or whatever, and you just kind of set yourself a big, exciting, crazy goal that you want to achieve in that year. And what the book helps you do is to break that down into monthly chunks, and then kind of weekly tasks and daily steps. So, you know, for example, my goal for this year is to get to bronze exec. Now, you know, when I'm going out in the morning delivering some leaflets and it's 7 o'clock in the morning and it's freezing cold, I'm thinking, oh crikey, is this really going to help me get to bronze exec? It's quite hard sometimes to kind of take that big jump into a big goal. But if I know that to get to bronze exec, I need to have, you know, a PSG that's this big. I maybe need to be recruiting 8 distributors every period, or whatever it might be. How can I recruit 8 distributors? Well, if I know it takes me 30 or 40 leads to generate to find a new team member, and how many leaflets do I need to put out to find a new lead? And I can then break that down and say, okay, this means if I deliver 300 leaflets every day, that's where it's going to lead me to. And obviously you kind of fine-tune that as you're going along. But this book is a really great way to create that structure in your life, having started off with a really exciting goal and breaking it down into daily steps that you can achieve. So certainly recommend that one as well. Okay, well, gosh, that was quick. So, a couple of questions just to make sure everybody's being awake. Can you remember the quote? Natalie Ann, you're really on the ball. Work harder on yourself than you do on your... Helen, very good, well done. Yep, that's exactly what it was. Work harder on yourself than you do on your job. And every penny you invest in yourself, every minute that you invest in your own education will repay you multiple times. Okay, of those books, just quick feedback. For those of you who've been in the business for a little while, are there any of those that you've read that you can tell us if you enjoyed any, or any that you struggled with? Or for those of you that haven't read any of those, are there any in there that you sort of think, oh yeah, that's something that appeals to me, I'd like to get started on that one? Natalie Ann. So the Darren Hardy one, the Achieving Your Goals. Yep, that's a great one, that. Good. Anyone else got any thoughts? Tracy? Good. Yep. Good. Oh, okay. That's interesting. Yeah, I got to admit, it was one of my. It really helps me when I'm kind of breaking down my sort of exciting goals into small chunks. Yeah, Steve, any gym run, agree to that. Yeah, thanks to Jeff Olson. I think Jeff Olson and the Darren Hardy one are both really, really good. So, but I think that's kind of really good that we've got a variety there. I think any of those books are great. And once you get into the habit of, in fact, one of Jim Rohn's habits is read 10 pages of a good book every day. So if you can get into that, the slight edge of finding some time in your day to read 10 pages of one of these books, at the end of a year you will have read 10 books or something, and you'll be your character and your disciplines will be transformed. So it's certainly worth getting into that. Okay, so just quickly wrapping up then before I take any questions if anyone's got any. Basically what we covered today was just follow the system. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. A bit of essential understanding there, just about understanding the network marketing business. Make sure you understand a little bit about the Kleeneze pay plan. You don't have to understand every step of it, but understanding the next step or two ahead of where you are now is really useful. And I would recommend to you all, just make a start if you haven't already on some personal development. Get one of those books, get a CD if you prefer listening to reading. A lot of books these days are available on CD. You can just stick them in your car. If you're driving half an hour to work or something like that, that's half an hour there, half an hour back. That's an hour of education every single day, which will soon mount up. Oh, Helen, interesting point there about the system. I hadn't heard of that book, but that's interesting. I bet that's available on bids. And finally then, just kind of wrapping up this last little bit. So this was number 6. Next week we're going to go into a bit more detail on a couple of these bits. So we're going to be talking about goals and attitude. And as I said earlier, all of these webinars are recorded. So I'm just going to stop the recording now, so I can take any questions that anybody might have.